We are live this evening. So, not too much of a monologue this evening because the subject is so varied and so big that we almost just have to get into the guest prognostications and figure out how exactly they're going to build their case. But what we can do is recognize that the West, whether we're talking about just America or even America specifically, or the West is in all of the European, I don't know that I want to use the word diaspora, but those of European ancestry. This is an issue of who we are and where we're headed, and what that's going to look like in the next few decades. Because if it isn't handled in the next few decades, then potentially we're going to be dealing with the fallout of this for the next few centuries. With that having been said, Mr. Andrew Gilmer, how are you doing this evening?
Doing pretty pretty
Pretty
well,
well,
Panda. Thanks
Panda.
for
Thanks for
asking.
asking.
All right, absolutely. So go ahead and introduce yourself. Let people know who you are and why we should be listening tonight.
My name
My
is
name is
Andrew
Andrew
Gilmer.
Gilmer.
I'm a well,
Well,
I don't want to
I
say
want to say
former
former
educator, but I
educator,
have
but I have
experience with
experience with
educating.
educating.
I'm
I'm
currently a
currently a
data
data
analyst,
analyst,
scared away
scared
from
away from
educating
educating
with
with
the
the
encroaching
encroaching
Marxism
Marxism
that we've
that we've
seen with
seen with
many
many
public
public
affairs.
affairs.
But
But
currently
currently
residing in the
residing in the
dirty
dirty
South.
South.
I'm on
I'm on
X
X
at
at
Andrew
Andrew
Gilmer
Gilmer
US,
US,
the
the
beautiful,
beautiful,
broken,
broken,
brilliant
brilliant
bastard.
bastard.
Yep.
Happy to be
Happy to
here.
be here.
You will find that link there in the description. All right. So Gilmer, this idea of death of the West. Spengler's been saying it. Other people have been arguing it. This question throughout the 20th century: who are we, and what does it mean to have the death of the West? So, I want to start by defining terms, and we'll do that before we even really dig into it. What is the West? What are we talking about tonight?
Well, when we're
Well, when we're
talking
talking
about
about
the
the
West for
West for
me,
me,
it's the
it's the
culture we
culture
grew
we
up
grew up
with.
with.
It's you
It's you
work for a
work for a
job,
job,
you're
you were
rewarded
rewarded
based on
based on
meritocracy for a
meritocracy for a
job well
job well
done.
done.
It's
It's
the
it's the
quality of your
quality of your
character, not the
character, not the
color of your
color of your
skin.
skin.
It
It
is
is
individualism.
individualism.
It's not
It's
this
not this
collectivist
collectivist
encroachment that we're
encroachment that we're
seeing more
seeing
and
more and
more.
more.
Very good. All right. So before we go too much further, is there a difference between the West as we participate in it in the US and the West as it's participated in Europe, Australia, Canada, New Zealand?
I would
I
say
would say
yes and
yes and
no.
no.
Okay.
There are
There are
certain
certain
aspects
aspects
that
that
apply
apply
more
more
to
to
us and
us
more
and
to
more to
them.
them.
Individualism, I
Individualism, I
think, is
think, is
much more of
much
an
more of an
American
American
concept.
concept.
They've
They've
always had
always had
some
some
what
what
more of a
more of a
socialist
socialist
approach to
approach to
things than we
things than we
have in
have in
all the
all
other
the other
countries
countries
in the
in the
West.
West.
And that
And
might
that
even
might even
say that
say that
maybe they
maybe they
slid
slid
closer to a collapsing West quicker than we did. We are a fledgling
fledgling
nation
nation
after all,
after all.
so
So
progressivism,
progressivism,
may just
may
put
just
them a
put them
little
a
ahead
little
of the
ahead of the
game
game for
comparison to
comparison to
us.
us.
It
It
seems we
seems we
barely
barely
saved
saved
ourselves
ourselves
from
from
the
the
worst of
worst
what
of
could
what
have
could have
been
been
by
by
electing
electing
Trump.
Trump.
Okay. Very good. So the last one sort of delineating between us and Europe. Do you think then that there's uh, any merit to the idea that America is the Faustian extension of Europe, and that there was something different than about the various, primarily Anglos, but then Scans, Nords, Germans that came over this way? Has there been ethnogenesis? Was there a particular makeup of the folks that came in those first 2 to 3 waves and said, "Yes, this is going to be our home"? I guess that would include portions of the French and Spanish as well.
Well, I
Well, I
think the
think the
one
one
major
major
difference is our religious tolerance here. Nearly every other Western nation is by default a Christian nation. Our nation specifically has religious tolerance. We have, it in our bylaws, so within our Constitution. I couldn't tell you exactly which amendment or what the language is, but we have the freedom of religion. You have like the Church of England, you have the Church of France, You have the Vatican. All these places are tied to national identities, and some of them have even expanded beyond those borders. But here in America, we can take bits and pieces of whatever we have, and that kind of makes up that cosmopolitan nature of religion is what makes up our character. And that's that individualism is what I'm telling you about. And we tend not to judge too harshly people who have different religious views or no religious views. But I think that's a big part of Westernism. I would say is Christianity.
Okay, so we can start getting into specifics. And do you think that when we're talking about freedom of religion, the U.S. was founded primarily as a Christian or echo of Christianity as,
I'd say
as
we. Well,
as
sorry.
the religious identity? And so my question would be, can we? Are there any religions that are a bridge too far for the Western/American identity?
I would say, yeah, I would say that fundamental Islam is for one. They uh they have the caliphate. They want to have a one world, all land belonging under to Allah and Sharia law, and that doesn't mesh with our small governments. We got community, we've got state level, and things change from state to state. But they want it to be all encroaching, one rule, one law, and what they bring about is honestly a little more violent than what we have because they're willing to draw blood if necessary to bring that about. That's antithetical to the American way of life.
Okay, so then let's start talking in broad sweeps. Are we on? Are we currently on the highway to the death of the West? How? What is the basis for that? And then eventually in the conversation, we'll start moving to, are there off ramps? So right now, are we currently on a highway that is leading towards the death of the West? Oh, are you muted? I'm not sure.
Um, I'm not muted. No, can you hear me?
I can now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I was
Apparently it's not
apparently
going
it's
to let
not
me
going to
look
let
at
me
my
look at my
notes here,
notes here.
so
So
that's problematic. But give me a second. I can
uh,
abridge that.
bridge that.
Sure.
So yeah, there's
So yeah,
a
there's
few
a few
factors.
factors.
Economic inequality has been skyrocketing of late. I think that factors into what we're noticing about our lack of individualism, the lack of power, the lack of ability of us to uh, chase our dreams. That's been a big part of the American ideal for a long time. Or American identity is, it's the land where you go and make dreams come true. I mean, we've seen countless tales of that through popular culture. You think an American Tale, you remember that one from as a
As a
child.
child,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no
there's no
cats in
cats in
America, and the
America, and the
streets are
streets
paved
are
with
paved with
cheese. It's
cheese.
the
It's the
Right.
same
same
difference.
difference.
Uh,
Uh,
we're
we're
losing
losing
our
our
shared identity, patriotism. You can see it going one of two ways. You have people on the right who are claiming to be patriotic and wanting to keep things true to our well our Constitution. Then you look at the left and you see them making the exact same claims, but shoveling pardon my French horse shit in your face and saying that we're the true patriots here and this is how things are. But uh, by and large, Americans are, at least we believe ourselves to be, by the law and do things by the law. And when we see these attacks taking place with the globalists and their, we can say, importation of the third world, it makes things seem like, hey, I've been playing by the rules my whole life, and what kind of dessert is this? Anybody who's paying attention is going to be left feeling a little uh, taken back, I guess you can say. Um,
um,
Other
other
factors
factors.
that come into it is the breakdown of the family unit. This is something that's been weeding away like all the way since the 60s, at least. Probably before then, it's tied to feminism a little bit. It's with families falling apart. The nuclear family, which was a major sign of stability for us, has now become almost a dirty word. We think about female empowerment, and if you look at it, it's we're noticing so much of a collapse in morality, and this goes along with the religious aspect of it, as I was mentioning a little while ago. We see the family falling apart, and the nation no longer has that same sense of morality that it once did. There's a call to care for our loved ones, our wives, our children's, our daughters, our sisters as males, and now we're taught that oh, we shouldn't be doing these things. We're talking the women and men are all equal, and it's well, I mean, you can even see the perversion of this in transgenderism circles with what's going on through politics with that, and it's it's very difficult for someone who grew up in our age, we say as Generation X or elder millennial, whichever you consider yourself to be. We have these gender roles that were given to us, and now we're chastised for wanting to be the protectors that we were raised to be. Um, let's see, what else have I got here? We talked about religious collapse a little bit already. I think that that's a major factor of it. Uh, if you look into, we'll say Christianity as a whole, and I'm not going to get down into the nitty gritty of it, how where it all started, which is obviously Catholicism, and then the Protestant Reformation, blah blah blah, moved out. We've got more Catholic churches, I mean more Christian churches in America than we have all the religions combined, which is kind of impressive, also, but also just shows you how separate we're becoming and that loss of identity that we had it's weird to see it go this way. We're going towards a more collectivist route, right? But we're seeing religion spread up into so many different ways, and in many ways, I feel like it's divide and conquer of Christianity and the ideals that come along with it. Um,
Yeah, lots of little silos versus one big field that we're all in.
Precisely, and the smaller units are easier to influence from without. Soros puts money into churches. Israel puts money. Well, some of them draw money from Israel draws money from the dispensationalist churches. So I mean, you can see it going multiple ways. That it's just subversion on multiple fronts. We're seeing female pastors that are advocating LGBTQ plus things, and it's transgenderism in supposedly Christian churches, when most of these churches 20, 30 years ago would consider these things to be, well, heretical, or at the very least sinful. And so we're seeing it. We're seeing this attack on the West coming from almost every side where morality is concerned. Education is another big one, and that one hits really close home to me because, as I said, I was a former educator, but I never actually got to teaching. I went through my I got we'll say a bachelor's degree in science in art education, which is a mouthful to say, but that's an art teacher basically. I was certified from K to 12. When I did my student teaching, which is your practicum, I was I had a supervising professor who was a lesbian feminist woman, and I mean she seemed nice enough, but as you were writing your lessons and you were using example lessons or lesson example artists for your lesson plans. For instance, I grew up studying we could say a lot of Italian Renaissance. The Ninja Turtles of the arts. I mean, that's honestly what drew my love towards them. And you learn more about them, and you can see why they were considered the masters. And if you wanted to use one of these artists as a master or an example for your project that you were doing or whatever they were, the teacher would tell you, no, you can't use these people. We don't want you to use these people. I want you to choose a person of color. And I'm
Okay,
thinking,
I was thinking Derrida or something, but they're going further than that.
oh yeah, yeah, they want and it was and I'm not just saying it was just the Italian Renaissance bad boys, but even like more Caucasian relative artists, Norman Rockwell, Chuck Close. I mean, whoever it was, if they were white, they would recommend someone who was non-white. And I even posed the question. I was like, well, what about the white students who are in there? Because the ideal was, they want to have, they want the children to see artists that are, that they can identify with, as if they're too stupid to realize that all humans can do the same things that other humans can do. And they I was given failing grades on my projects when I refused to do such because I don't mind doing like okay, I'll do a color artist for one class, and then for another one, uh, I'll do uh, I'll do a person of color for this one, and then I want to do a white one. I want to represent everyone in the class, but that wasn't good enough for them. What they wanted was complete, anti-white, anti-Western take on things, and a lot of the times, the artists they want us to use were not even what we can say to be top of the line exemplary artists. They were substandard.
Yeah, so I'll actually be curious to get your thoughts on this. It has seemed to me that particularly within the past 2 decades, there's really been this move towards uh, people who don't have a Western identity forming some form of simulacra of a Western form. And to dig into that, I remember as a kid a celebration of African forms, African stories, or far East Asian forms. And for whatever reason, it seems like in the past 2 decades, there's been this coalescing around Western forms, especially medieval times, the Greek period, these Western ideas, and subverting those into Black stories or Eastern Asian
Yeah,
stories or whatever.
Enos Kangs.
Right, and I don't understand that because I'm thinking if you have who was it? It's not what I'm going to say isn't profound. It's the one that everybody has to read in World Literature 101. That there's an African author that I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, so he's producing stories from Africa. That to me is interesting, right?
Yeah,
Tell me what's coming out of your country and what the heroic ideas were, and we could see in there some sort of perennialism, some sort of uh, Evolian idea of where these things overlap. But I also want to see yours for yours. I don't want you to come in and claim my stories and claim my history and say that it was yours. What do you think caused that shift and that dynamic
I think it was
in
a
say
deliberate. Oh,
2010 in
sorry.
post?
I would say it was part of a measured plan to make an attack on the West. I think that right now, what they're trying to do with our nation, with the communist uprising, I guess is what we could call it at this point, is they're trying to create as many non-issues as they can to get us distracted talking about those things while they handle, well, more serious issues. Um, I don't. I saw a link to an article about the OSS field manual that one of our mutuals posted on his X, and it
Now,
detailed this
real quick
exactly.
for the listeners, break down what the OSS is.
That's the. I can't even remember what it stands for. I apologize.
Oh, no worries, but it was the precursor to the CIA.
Yeah, precursor to the CIA, definitely. I could say that. But it was basically teaching you how to disrupt and disorient and slow down progress for any movement. And it's the exact same sort of thing we're seeing now when it comes to transgenderism and stuff. We can't even agree on what a man and what a woman is. There's no more ridiculous a conversation to be had, in my opinion, than that one. And you see that it manifests to even people protesting on the streets. I saw one protest where these people were camped out in these people's yard, and the cops came to get them to move, and they had a designated speaker to speak to the police officer. And the police officer said, "Well, they won't speak to you, but you have to speak to me." Or excuse me, the woman, the speaker said, "You'll have to speak to me." And so they were basically playing telephone, where she would go and tell them things, and they would tell them no, and then she'd come back and tell them no. And it's just they waste as much time as you can. And what this is all a part of is the Cloward Piven strategy. You familiar with the Cloward Piven strategy? It's a communist tactic that was devised in the 60s. And what they do is they put stress on infrastructure and systems to waste time, waste resources, overload the systems so that they are become ineffective, and people lose faith in those institutions. So, in many ways, the way we're seeing that same thing happen with our complaints about, well, Netflix renditioning of any historical, figure at this point in time. We've seen like the Black Joan of Arc, the Black
Black
transgender
transgender
Joan of
Joan of
Arc, if
Arc,
you
if
even
you even
want.
want.
But
But
it's
it's
it has a
has a
remarkable
remarkable
amount of
amount
money
of
being
money being
spent on
spent on
this,
this,
and
and
people are
people are
talking
talking
about it,
about it,
Yeah.
and
Well,
they're
and they're
talking about
talking about
non-issue
non-issue
things.
things.
I'm thinking just a quick example too. The Rings of Power, if I remember correctly, was a $1 billion deal for 5 seasons. It, it is it is a well, actually, here, let me show my ignorance of the media per se, but then the the research I did prior to watching it. I have not watched any of it and have no plans of watching any of it. One, because of the dynamics that it brings in regards to Tolkien's world, which I think are silly, but then also certainly the social agendas that are being pushed within that particular piece of media. And that's just one example. But like you said, the exorbitant amounts of money, $1 billion, they did with the Tolkien estate.
Yeah. Um, I don't pretend to understand what the Tolkien estate was thinking. I assume they were thinking, I like money, very
Very
Exactly.
idiocratically.
idiocratically.
Yep.
Um,
Um,
but at the end of the day, it was a way of rubbing the face of white accomplishment uh, in the faces of, well, people of color, to say, hey, look, see, you can take their culture and do what you want to with it. But at the same time, you hear other people saying, oh, well, white people can't have braids because that's cultural appropriation, or you shouldn't be listening to this music or dancing this way or driving this vehicle or eating this food or cooking this food, all these things that white people can't do or
or
Westerners
Westerners
can't
can,
do, but other
but other
people are
people
free
are
to
free
do
to
what
do
they
what
want
they
to
want.
with Western tropes.
Now, where does it come from? Is this a organic social response to increased immigration? Is this something that's coming from on high? Klaus Schwab and George Soros, and they are actively trying to change the culture. Where do you believe this whole arc is coming from?
I don't
I
believe
don't.
I actually know. And it comes from the New Pluralists. Are you familiar with the New Pluralists?
Certainly not under that name.
Okay, so the
Okay,
New
so the new
Pluralists is
pluralists.
a name for progressive think tanks. They had some formerly, we'll say, conservative people in it, like the Koch Foundation. The Koch brothers are involved with it. The ADL's involved with it. One of the Walmart uh, heiresses, not the blood related one that was married to a man who passed away. I can't remember her name. Uh, there's a few other examples in there. I'm drawing a blank on them right now, and I really can't exit off here while talking to you. I depend heavily upon my notes and stuff. But what they have decided is there's no content with them in how, or they're not happy with the way American culture works. It's too indecisive. They would prefer something that is more less democratic, more not a monarchy per se, but they want to do away with the Western democracy that we have here, our democratic republic. They want to have more control for corporations. They could see themselves having more progress if we didn't have the laws that are impeding them the way that our laws are impeding them. And from our standpoint, it doesn't seem like it's impeding them one way or the other. Imagine what they'd have in store for us if they actually could do what they want to. But it's been called the color revolution. I'm sure you're familiar with Data Republican. She's the
She's
one
the
who
one who
uncovered where
uncovered
all this
where all
stuff
this
came
stuff came
from,
from,
and
and
it's
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 concerning
concerning
because
because
these are people that you would think would have America's best interest in mind. And if you have America's best interest in mind, then why do you want to change what America is? Makes you
makes you
wonder.
wonder.
Sure. All right. So I've got one question, and then maybe we'll start digging into off ramps a little bit to see if there is, what is that glimpse of hope? Is there a glimpse of hope? But my primary question right now is, we're talking about the U.S. civilization culture sort of being led. Does that leading ever go astray, or are there competing powers? An easy question is what's going on right now with Iran? Is this intentional? Are we being led to this? Is Trump going rogue? Does Israel have more power, more functional power than was expected? What Let's dig into Iran a little bit, but the big connection I want to make is how that's playing into the picture you're painting right now for us.
Okay, so we've got very much a very a volatile left versus right situation here in America currently. There exists a superstructure that is outside of our parties that aren't concerned with our misgivings one way or the other. And this money is going to be in control no matter which way we go. But it's people beneath them that have more of a say in the semantics of party politics. But as where Iran goes, I want there to be no confusion here. I don't believe that Israel per se really twisted our arm or Trump's arm very much to get over there, because the benefit we have if we can take control of Iran's oil fields or even take them
take
off the
them off the
table
table
in
in
terms
terms
of
of
our
our
hegemonic
hegemonic
influence,
influence,
especially
especially
given with
given with
China,
China,
Russia, and
Russia,
what's
and
going
what's
on
going
in
on in
Ukraine, whether you
Ukraine, whether you
support that or
support that or
not.
not.
If we
If we
control
control
all of the
all of the
oil in the
oil in the
world,
world,
these
these
people can't
people
do
can't do
anything.
anything.
China
China
is
is
they're
they're
using
using
about
about
16
16
million
million
barrels a
barrels a
day at
day
this
at
point
this
in
point in
time.
time.
Their
Their
net
net
production is
production is
4
4
million
million
barrels.
barrels.
They make
They
4
make 4
million
million
barrels
barrels
a
a
day.
day.
Just think
Just
about
think
that.
about that.
They're
They're
Sure. So a
importing that
quarter of
that
what
much.
they,
much.
right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now they've
Now they've
got
got
about
about
1.2
1.2
billion
billion
barrels
barrels
in
in
just stowed away
stowed
right
away
now.
right now.
But that
Hmm.
But that
in
in
wartime
wartime
and with their
and with
Belt
their
and
Belt
Road
and Road
project and
project
what
and
they
what
have
they
to
have
do
to
to
do
get
to get
resources from the
resources from the
periphery
periphery
back to
back
the
to the
core,
core,
there's no
there's no
way that
way
they
that
can
they
do
can
that.
do that. This was
It was
it
the
was the
ace in the
ace in
hole
the
for
hole for
Trump, to be
Trump, to be
honest with
honest
you.
with you.
And the
And the
left
left
knows that
knows
it's
that.
exactly what it is, and China realizes that. And the reason we're seeing so much hate and misinformation about it is because they're trying to do anything they can to slow it down, stop it, to where they can get a foot in the door and try and slow down their decline. So, in regards to your off ramp, I think yes, we're going to see some reprieve in some things, but I think we're going to see acceleration in other areas. Now, what those are and what they are, I can't speculate. I don't know. I just know that the money won't be there for them to be able to contribute in the same way that they have been, because we're seeing multiple enemies of the U.S. work towards the collapse of the Western system. Um, Now we have people within our own shores, like I told you, the New Pluralists. There is some European influence in there as well, but they're predominantly American. So you've got the Marxists who obviously want communism in the country, or at the very least collectivism. And then you have the Heritage Foundation, I guess you could call us, which is, well, however you feel about Con Inc. or all the other stuff, you do have a very real conservative will in the people for things to remain the way they have been. So you've got these two competing powers. It's David versus Goliath in terms of financial risks or means. And honestly, as far as off ramps go, there's a very limited window where we could have any influence in this whatsoever. If robots get weaponized, if robots get to the point where they can combat us, our even our our right to bear arms may be of limited usefulness against those things. I don't know if you play video games or not, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you play against AI in a shooter game and you put that thing on max difficulty, that you don't stand a chance, man. Even like the most pro gamers, maybe they can exploit something, but if these things are really trained for military, human beings can't compete with that stuff. It's going to be very one-sided. So I think that we're definitely headed to collectivism, regardless of whether we want it or not. I think that we can definitely let our voices be heard and say what we're not willing to handle, what we're not willing to take, and the best way to do that is to man, it's not going to be through the Republican Party. I can tell you that right now. Not with the
Not with the
Hey,
candidates we've
candidates we've
seen.
seen.
hey, Andrew, I just want to jump in for just a second. Is there any way that you can jump out and then jump back in? I'm seeing in the chat that apparently there's a lot of echo. You sound good on my end, so I'm not sure where it's coming from, but
Sure.
Sure.
All right. So I wait for him. It'll be interesting when he jumps back on. I guess we'll see if there's any sort of. Oh, here we go. Oh, nearly. Sorry, guys. Pardon this for just a moment. All right, Andrew, can you hear me?
All right.
All
Can you
right,
hear
can
me
you hear
now?
me now?
Yes. Yep, I
Let
hear
me
Let
you.
try
me try
turning down
turning
my
down my
volume.
volume.
That could
That
have a
could have a
factor.
factor.
That
Okay.
could be
That could be
playing
playing
into it.
into it.
Gotcha. Yeah, because your levels
All
look
right. So
good
is
on
Is
this
this
my
any
any
better?
better?
end. You've sounded good to me, so I'm not sure if this is an issue with restream or what's going on. But your levels look good and you sound good to me, so we shall see. All right. So, and I think I'm hearing what you're saying too with China. The idea basically with China, due to population collapse, is that the next 2 decades with them will be the most dangerous we've ever had with China. Is that a fair statement?
It
It
is,
is,
but
but
if we control the oil, there's very little they can do to combat us before losing everything. If you know anything about China's geopolitical woes, there is a particular vulnerability in China that, if it's hit with a strategic missile, means that the entire country collapses, their entire economy collapses. They don't want to get into a proverbial pissing match contest with the United States, because we could hit them where it hurts, and there would be, I wouldn't say no coming back from that, but they would definitely be focused on rebuilding infrastructure and such. So I think that, depending upon how desperate China gets, which I don't think they're inclined to be, because they honestly have a pretty good deal the way things are. They're not having a problem with wealth. Their people are living pretty comfortably by and large. They just got, they let their ego get ahead of them. I don't know that that's going to remain this way. I can't say. I don't think anybody really can say. Um, I don't know if you heard today, they actually flew military planes over Taiwan, and my thoughts are, is this, it's a bluff. They would not put themselves, overextend themselves in a situation with no fuel coming in,
yeah,
because
because
once it
once it
goes,
goes,
there's nobody's going to sell them fuel, because then they would incur the wrath of the U.S.
Okay. Well, so that's interesting though. Is it possible for the U.S. to overextend themselves? I'm trying to understand how the U.S. is going to be operating in Iran to the point where functionally, or excuse me, if I'm understanding you correctly, Iran needs to functionally collapse and lose any sort of power within the region. How does the U.S. accomplish that, and why would China and a few other countries allow that to happen?
They don't have a choice, because if that, even if that oil is destroyed and we control Venezuela at this point in time, there's not enough oil in the world to keep China's military or their economy afloat. They're dependent upon oil regardless of all this talk and focus on electronics and such. Think about the Belt and Road Initiative, all right? The idea behind that is, they've extended these peripheries to get resources, and they give them infrastructure in exchange for what they want to ship back. Shipping anything back from those places takes fuel. If they don't have that fuel, their economy shuts down. So it's
so it's
it's like, do you like to eat? Then good. You know, if they uh if they attack us, we can sabotage the fuel. I mean, it's it's not going to benefit us to lose that for our production, but for China, if we were to destroy it, they would be screwed either way you look at it.
Yeah, so already they're between a rock and a hard place.
They're on the
they're on the
ropes,
ropes.
exactly.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So let's say then that by and large external factors don't play into the next couple of decades. What is the off ramp for us? Is there an off ramp for us? I know, if I remember correctly, you said that the expectation is regardless, we're going to move towards a more collective identity, a more collective society. Um, is there any way that we are going to see any sort of a right wing, if not political, a right wing existential change within the culture?
The only
The
way
only
we can do that is by getting more conservative lawyers and lawmakers, and that's getting kids to go into constitutional law, getting them in magistrate and judicial positions around the country, and ideally getting some that aren't corrupted by the system into politics in general. Because right now we have basically we have taxation without representation. And honestly, if this were 1776, they would be they burned the house down to
to
get some
get some
results out of
results
these
out of these
people.
people.
Right. I think it was 3% drove
Throwing
us
tea
from
in
Throwing
the
tea in the
harbor.
rebellion
harbor.
to revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to throw our senators in the harbor at this point in time, but yeah, I don't
I
think
don't
they'd
think
like
they'd
that
like
too
that too
much.
much.
Yeah, it is interesting because there are there's whiffs of there are whiffs of autonomy and of a more federalist identity that you will get with certain senators, and then eventually it just appears to be some form of containment, some form of a pressure release,
Yeah,
because ultimately, regardless of who it is, they seem to act in a goofy way, whether that be Paul or Massey, and those are just the two latest ones. But
Kennedy's like
Kennedy's
that
like
too a
that too
little
a
bit.
little
He
bit. He
uses
uses
humor to
humor to
diffuse
diffuse
instead
instead
of
of
other
other
things. You may
things. You
not
may
like
not
what he
like what he
does,
does,
but
but
it
it
keeps
keeps
people
people
appeased.
appeased.
I
I
think of
think of
I think
I
of
think of
Congress kind
Congress
of as
kind
a
of
Rube Goldberg mousetrap, but not a mousetrap, but just a entertainment machine, appeasement machine, so to speak. And that's what they're doing. It's just appeasing people. They're not really doing a whole lot. It's not much different from dictatorships in other countries. You've got your small circle of people around you that you help, and then they help those that circle around from out them. They just have to help just enough Americans to make it look like they're doing their job. There are a lot of people are going to fall between the cracks, and most of the time it's elderly folks. I don't know if you're a bridge to the elder care situation in our country, but it's dark and it's grisly. And honestly, if it got national attention or international attention, we would look like animals. But I think the saving grace to that is that it's no better in other countries either.
um
We You're aware of what's going on with MAID in Canada, I'm sure,
sure
and medical
yes,
assistance in dying. Yeah.
I am. But go ahead and dig in for listeners to the idea of, what it is. It's something as I can't remember the acronym, but it's assisted death, and
Medical
excuse
medical
me. It's
assistance in
assistance in
dying.
dying.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
an elective. It is an elective suicide. So
And
And
here
here
in the
in
elder care facilities, we can say a lot of these people they don't get medical assistance in dying unless there's like some grievous attitude, but they're neglected to death. They don't eat, or they don't get fed, they don't get changed, they get hydrated, they end up with sepsis and then die. A lot of these people don't have families to report the neglect or abuse that's taking place. With where technology is with data analysis, it's capable, or we're capable of taking data sets and plugging in algorithms and determining where the neglect, fraud, and abuse is coming from. But no one is doing it because it's a huge money making industry. If you want to talk about Medicaid fraud, those places are, man, they would probably put Michigan to shame if you looked at them all across the nation. And
and
that's tough
that's
to
tough to
say.
say.
all right. So you caught my ear too, though, when you said that primarily the way in which we can positively affect this is through uh, formal lawfare. That is, people going in and becoming lawyers, becoming judges. Now, do you think that is a problem with our three branches, and that the judicial branch has become more powerful? Do you think that's the natural outcome of democracy? Well, excuse me, a republic. How do you think all this plays together? And if we're saying that people should jump into the judiciary, how will that ultimately wash out?
Well, we have to do it with lawmaking. Are you do you follow JT Alexander? I don't know if you guys
You guys
follow him, but
follow him,
he's
but
he's
he's
at
at
JT, I
JT,
think
I think
underscore
underscore
Alexander on
Alexander
I
on
X.
think
X.
I may have heard him speak. Has he done spaces with you?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
been
he's
on
been on
a couple
a
of my
couple of my
spaces. He's
spaces.
been
I
the
He's been a
think I
first
may
first
person
have
of
heard him
Elon.
speak once or twice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's brilliant. He's a lawyer. He's a former serviceman as well. He talks about how to fix this. How do we get on top of things? How do we get things going right? And the only way we can do that is with more conservative lawyers, more conservative judges, because we're winning. We've got a lot of judicial wins during the Trump administration that they can't just undo with the stroke of a pen when a progressive president makes it into office. So it's just when I say that, I don't know exactly what I'm not familiar with exactly what laws we have passed, but I know that we've made leaps and bounds because this guy, he's a brainiac, man. He's smart. He knows the law well, and he's very pleased with what's been happening legally for us. So I default to his judgment in those things. I know
Yeah.
better than to claim mastery over things that I don't know enough about. Default to the experts.
Very good. Now, are you familiar with Helen Andrews at all? Have you heard her speak on anything?
Maybe I'm bad with names sometimes. Tell
Okay.
me a little bit more.
So, her argument is that the woke and everything else was less of a top down issue, but what it simply was more women entering the workforce, and that ultimately there is a line that once the population of a particular labor force reaches a particular percentage of women, then the men just start to exodus. And so that she said the first time we ever really dealt with that was post 2010, and that was the woke. And so we went through that decade, or more closer to 15 years. We went through the 15 years of that. And she said that that is going to continue to happen while we have females in the labor force, particularly in areas like law. Uh, Her big ones, I want to say, are law. I forget. But do you think that idea has any merit?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I think it was one of the vehicles, but it wasn't the only one because you have to look at the media side of things. There was a concerted effort through, we could say, video game. You might be familiar with Gamergate. We could say
Not
the
nearly as well as a lot of people. I know it sort of popped off with paying for video game reviews, sex for video game reviews, and then it built from there. But as to the actual details, somehow or another, I missed that one.
the outcome was basically every narrative-driven story being driven to include some kind of bisexual or homosexual gay character arc or some
DEI video games.
yeah, just characters forced in there that don't make any reason or make any sense out of it, and you're just like it takes away from the story. It doesn't add to it. You have like gender identity quests now, and you're like, who asked for that? Was it the 5% of American population that is transgender? They wanted to have that, or did people want to role play being trans? I honestly don't understand and I think to me it's more of they're trying to, as I was saying earlier, they're trying to make non-issues a problem for us. So when we go to look for our escape from the frustrations of reality, we're seeing more of those frustrations of reality in our escapes. And ultimately, it's designed to undermine us and make us say that, hey, this current system is not good enough for us. I think that's what a majority of these things are trying to do is unsettle people, get people ready for whatever comes next because it's got to be better than this.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point I was going to jump on. Isn't what they're doing a little bit dangerous because we could wind up with a system that they don't appreciate, but would the expectation be that whoever the powers that be are, that it will be their system that we receive, and like you said, they're just priming the pump.
Yeah. And the right's aware of that. I'm not sure if you know about Peter Thiel's plans for the United States. He sees things as more of a kind of a technocratic. I don't want to say oligarchy, but I mean that's what it would be. But it's basically a fiefdom where you have different corporations lay rule to the different parts of the country, and we generally do what our district is almost a Hunger Games setup, but probably not anywhere near as abysmal. More Cyberpunk 2077 ish, if you got what I'm saying. That would be the ideas they want, and they JD Vance is his candidate. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but that's what you're
That's what you're
welcoming
welcoming
in
in.
is uh, Thiel style total control via uh, AI and transhumanism compared to the exact same thing for the elites while oppressing everyone else. And
You know,
I think if I had to choose between communism with AI overlords, I would choose the technological fiefdom over the
over
two
the two
because you
because
might
you might
have
have
a chance in those, but the rest of them are just going to keep you down at the bottom of the list, and you know how it goes in communist societies. The people at the center, they get taken care of. The people in the Politburo or in their families, they get the nice stuff, and then it trickles its way down. The farther away it gets from the core, people don't have anything. And there's also the hidden threat of the anti-whiteness that comes with the communist movement. It seems that whites are being declared the other, which is common with identity politics. You always have to
just have
have
to
the
have the
bad
bad
guy.
guy.
And if you're the
If you're the
bad guy
bad
in
guy,
those situations, usually there's a violent uprising where those people are taken out. And whether it be that way or just intellectualism, you get one or both, perhaps. So
it's
it's definitely looking more preferable to join Peter Thiel's fiefdom than it is whatever they have in mind for the other guys.
Yeah, techno feudalism type idea where we align
Hmm.
ourselves with a Thiel or a Ford or a whomever at this
A
point.
Musk.
Musk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Musk. There's a lot of guys repping Price, but I think that's kind of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right,
That's
That's
a
a
Ross
Ross
Perot
Perot
type
type
deal.
deal.
right. Okay, fair enough. Well, duck on it. You had said something there, and it tripped a trigger. You were talking about Thiel. You were talking about fiefdoms. Oh, okay. So yeah, why make the white group, the Europeans, especially in the well, excuse me, I was going to say especially in the U.S., but that's not fair. Why make the Europeans in Europe? Why make the Europeans in America the bad guy? What is behind that? And then what is the end goal? Is it some sort of Hutu Tutsi idea where one of the lower classes just says, "Hey, it's time to kill them all," or what's the plan?
You know, it's it's very early to determine which one it is, but there's a couple of potentialities. One is to irritate the white class enough with the third world importations to stoke some kind of aggressive action across the Middle East in a final gust to sate the, we'll say, elite masses by having a massive another World War III type scenario where we just put people into the meat grinder and clear out the Middle East for our number one ally, or they just kill us all off and they start over with more subservient people that they can more easily control. I think the reason whites are targeted is one for the intellectualism from them. Not saying that all whites are superior intellectually, but there's definitely a positive correlation. And there's also the family. You still have the atomic family that is it's more prevalent in white communities than it is in others. And so if they're going to attack that family, it makes sense to attack the people that have those families in that regard.
Yeah. So if it has to come down between one of those two options, we hope we wind up on top. But
Yeah, I
Yeah,
hope we
I hope we
run up on
run up
top.
on
I
top.
think
I think
we've got
we've got
a lot better chance of staying on top here in America than they do in Europe and Australia.
Australia.
So
So
so I don't disagree with you on that, but I want you to jump in and explain why. Because if you look at raw percentages, then certainly there are more natives, there are more white folks in England than there are the U.S. Per capita. So why would we argue that the folks in the U.S. have a better shot? Because I want to hear your answer, and then I'll give you mine.
Second Amendment.
Okay, so fair enough. Fair enough. In that sort of once the dominoes start falling, they're more likely, they're going to fall faster in those areas without access to private firearms. And then so that sure is one thing. My argument too is it's an issue of actual mass and total velocity. It's so once you reach a tipping point in England, and it's faster to reach a tipping point because of one, how small the country is, and then two, how many fewer people there are there. And so even though you can have, or let's put it this way, 10% of 100 million is a whole lot more than 10% of 1 million. And so you can have pockets of resistance, you can have pockets of velocity within the US that you can't necessarily have in other areas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
we've
we've
got
got
way more
way more
sprawl
sprawl
to
to
develop
develop
in.
in.
There's
There's
places off
places
the
off the
beaten
beaten
path, and
path, and
not to say that they don't have those or they don't exist in Europe, but most of them are inaccessible because they don't have roads run out to them. Well, we have this great road system that we have in America, and that allows us to, move away from the city and still be prosperous. I'm not sure where you live. I know you're a farmer, but you probably live in one of those examples where you can pretty much live off your land and not have to worry about the outside world within reason.
reason.
Within reason. I've got some squirrely neighbors here and there, but yeah,
Yeah.
within reason.
I envy,
I
you,
envy you,
sir.
sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
My
dad was
dad
a
was a
farmer,
farmer,
actually, but grew up
grew
doing
up doing
subsistence
subsistence
farming.
farming.
Okay.
So,
And
and
he
he
always
always
encouraged in
encouraged
us
in us
how to grow our own vegetables. And I remember being a kid. It's like, why are you teaching us crap? We can just go to the grocery store and buy all this stuff. And I would just groan when he had me hoeing the yard and freaking tilling and doing all these other things, and like planting tomato stakes and planting was it eggplants and pumpkins and all kinds of other. I'm just like, why? Why are you doing this to us? I want to play video games. But now if I ever need it, I know what to do, provided things haven't
things haven't
changed too
changed too
much
much
since the
since the
90s
90s
anyway.
anyway.
Right. Yeah. No, it's still not too bad if you're, especially if you're on a small scale, you're not worried about taking stuff to the grain elevator or wherever. It is more or less, you go out, you take good care of the soil, and you drop the seed in there, and you wait for it to come up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's something
There's something
magical
magical
about it, isn't there?
there?
there is today. I had meant to get a photo of it, put it on X. I didn't have time, but I did a surface till in one of the market gardens today, and all that is to go in there, drop your tiller to just an inch or so, and
I
just
think
go
you
in
put a
there.
picture of that on there.
Did I? I don't know. Maybe. It's been a busy day. But anyway, yeah, the idea to get in there and just go right under the surface, break up any roots right now. Now we will be putting down onions this weekend is the goal. But even if you weren't doing that, go and do a surface till now, do another one in April, and then do another one just before you plant in May. And that's going to keep the seeds that are right there in that top 2 inches, the weed seeds that are in those top 2 inches that are going to start popping up. It's just going to break those up and prevent them from taking root before you get into actual planting season. But now's the perfect time to start your seeds in your house, in your greenhouse, wherever. But
I live in a
gated
gated community. There's not much room for farming here, but maybe next year.
Life would have to change a little bit for you to have a victory garden.
Yeah, I could grow some peppers in some pots. That's about as good as it gets. Carolina Reapers, love them.
Do you now?
I do.
How do you cook with them? What do you do with them?
You're gonna think I'm crazy, man. I eat them whole.
I do think you're crazy.
and people don't believe it until they see it. And I just, man, I'm a little bit on the spectrum, and to me, it makes this perfect white noise that just like numbs the universe for me. I got ghost pepper hot sauce I put on almost everything, but it's the Reapers. They're not always successful. Sometimes they're better than others. I haven't really figured out the magic yet. I need to do some more research. But yeah, it's good stuff, man. Do you like the spicy?
I do within reason. There's a Scotch bonnet sauce. It's
Oh,
Scotch
those
bonnet and
ones are they're
ginger,
sweet.
which yes, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of that. In general, jalapenos, but once you get too much beyond a jalapeno or cayenne, when I was younger, Dad would say, "I still like to be able to taste my food," and I was like, "Ah, come on, old man." But the hottest thing we had when I was growing up was like Dave's Insanity sauce, which popped off
I
for
remember that
about
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it popped off for 30 seconds, a minute, or whatever, but then it was gone. Now they've got the stuff that just smolders.
Dude, the
Golly.
more you do it, it'll be just like Dave's stuff, dude. I'm telling you, it's like you get this tolerance for it. And your sinuses don't get the message, okay? But you can taste stuff fine, I promise. It's I got a problem, man. It's just trust me, people think something's wrong with me. But like I'm raging at the Indian restaurants because it's not hot enough, dude. But yeah, it's I don't know. It's not even a
That
flex.
crazy white man is back. He wants it
Yeah,
hotter.
exactly.
Right.
Look at me like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? They had 1 to 6, and I was like, I want the 10, man. You guys don't have a 10? They're like, okay. And they come out there. It was just 6 still. I was pissed. But it wasn't
Very
that
good.
bad.
Very good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, so let's start putting a bow on this. What do you want to make sure that we take away from this? And where can we go from here? Not all of us are going to be able to jump into law, but what are things that we can be aware of? What are foundational ideas? Yeah, just give us sort of lead us out of this and put it put us on a hopeful note.
I'm a big believer in the rule of tens. And by that, I mean, yes, everybody cannot become a constitutional lawyer, but we can tell as many people as we can about it, particularly young people. Tell them what you would like to, because honestly, I wished I had gone into law. I've got the head for it. I just didn't have the patience or the honestly the idea to do it, or necessarily the aligned politics at the time. I was pretty liberal in my youth, but I honestly think telling more people, uh, speaking to family, speaking to friends, encourage them to tell more people that we do that. That's the only way we get this country back, if we're ever going to get it back.
All right, very good. So let's do it again. Your X account is Andrew Gilmer US. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. So that is in the description. If I didn't say it clearly enough, it's in the description. You'll be able to find him on X, where he posts about a plethora of things. Is that a fair description?
Shit posts, you name it, man. I'm all over it. A lot of yelling at politicians. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, plethora of stuff.
All right. Well, very good. So I appreciate you coming on, Andrew. I'm going to give a shout out to Arthur as well. He sort of hooked us up and said, "Hey, check this fella out. See if you can't get him on." And so glad to make that happen tonight. I know we tried to do it a few weeks ago and never quite figured that one out, topic wise and whatever. So this is good. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll cut.
No, man, I'm good. I thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. Impressive setup you got here. Yeah. I like your input. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Great time. All right, Andrew, you have a good evening. Everybody else, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you next week.